Thank you for tuning in to All Things Real Estate. Once again, here are your hosts, Brad Avergon and Gary Kelly.
So, Brad, we were talking about buying a home and doing a renovation loan on it and how it has to appraise, etc. It's not one of the things that, by the way, I really should allow you to introduce yourself and how to reach you.
That's great, Gary. I appreciate that. So my name is Brad Avergon. I'm a senior loan officer with Fairway Independent Mortgage, and the best way to reach me is via my cell phone, which is 978-375-5531, or you can reach me at brad@bradavergon.com. And Gary, how do they reach you?
I'm Gary Kelly. I am with the Castanet Realty Group, and I can be reached at 508-733-6005 or Gary@movewithgary.com. So, Brad, someone wants to do a rehab loan. My experience is you just can't go in and say, I can fix this for 50 grand. You need to have a licensed contractor.
That's correct. And that is oftentimes a challenge because a lot of the folks that want to do rehab loans are either in the industries or they have contacts in the industries. You know, it's my uncle or my dad or my mom or whatever is handy. And between my family, we can fix it all up. Well, unless that property could get an occupancy permit today, it's going to be challenging to do that. And then even with that, they're not necessarily going to get the funds. It has to be a situation where if you're buying a property, you're going to bring in a licensed contractor. If your uncle happens to be a licensed contractor, that I guess is fine. You're going to have to get a formal contract. This is not done with a handshake because the bank is involved. You're looking for bank money to help you rehab that property. So we want a formal contract, spell that in great detail as to what they're going to do and with what materials they're going to do it. And so once we have all of that, that gets put into the file along with the cost to buy the property, and we order an appraisal subject to the completion for the plans and the specifications that are in that contract. And then we use that future value as completed, what it's going to be worth when it's done, to underwrite the file.
I sold a foreclosure recently where the renovation loan approach was used, and the people buying it worked with a contractor. I don't know where the lines of demarcation are, but the contractor did all the paperwork, but he was willing to let the homeowners do some of the sweat equity.
Yeah, I'm sorry, right?
No. So doing demolition, pulling some stuff out, they were able to do, as well as, frankly, painting the walls.
Very, very common. And usually that's how I'll advise or guide my clients when they come to me and they say, hey, I'm a handy person. I've got skills, or I've got family that's got skills. And I explain to them that number one, we can only deal with a licensed contractor. So they have to have the licenses. The second thing is they have to have the insurance. That's really important because you hear about these stories, and it happens sometimes when a house is being worked on, something, the electrical box is open or something is open and there's fires and all. These folks have to have insurance so that if something happens to the house, which is our collateral, right? It's the bank's collateral as well as their home. There's insurance there that covers it. Not only that, homeowners typically have to take out either another type of insurance policy or amend their insurance policy that says, I'm going to have contractors working on my home, right? There's going to be people working on my home. And so there's an adjustment there. But what I usually advise them is say, look, if you've got these people in the family or you happen to be handy, work it out with this licensed contractor that you can do some of the work on the property or act as a sub or whatever it is that you would be doing. Obviously, you're not going to get paid as a sub. You're not going to get paid on your own stuff, but you can do some of the work in order to keep the cost of the contract out.
And I have a funny tangential story. The same house, when it was bought, it had electric interconnected smoke detectors. And the attorney said, you guys have to get that fixed, taken care of. Okay, but we didn't have a smoke certificate for closing because we hadn't fixed anything yet, and they were doing construction. So we get everything all set up, and they go in, the owners go in to close their permits, and the fire chief becomes aware that they've been living there without having the smoke detectors installed and approved by the fire department. And it was an interesting conversation. He called up, he was very, very angry. I want to know what attorney is approving this. I said, well, I don't think it was an approval. I think it was more a suggestion. Get going. But he was very clear that you got to get this thing done. And fire chief didn't want to hear about that. And, you look at it from his perspective, he doesn't want to hear that someone's working on a house, didn't have working smoke detectors. It happened on his shift, so to speak, and someone dies. So it's more involved than you might think. I was surprised by that because we did go down the path of construction anyway, and the smoke detectors are all going to get ripped apart to do what had to be done in there. It was definitely a lesson.
Yeah, it is an interesting one because we can't technically close a loan without a smoke detector cert in there. So I am surprised how it was able to get through. The only way that I could think of is if somehow it was interpreted that the property was not going to be occupied during the construction phase of the property. That might have been the case, but again, it could have been an oversight. But yeah, with an owner-occupied property or an occupied property, whether it's owner-occupied or if it's going to be a rental property, if people are going to be living in it, there needs to be a smoke detector certification signed by the fire department in the file, the closing file. That's requirement.
So, Brad, I don't want to go political on you. And please know I'm not trying to go there. But right now in the United States, we have a number of people that have come to our shores and are staying in hotels and whatnot. Some of them are working, some of them can't work, they don't have paperwork, whatever. What kind of a world would it look like if we were able to let them do work of whatever appropriate kind and get paid for it, etc., and then let them buy up some of this inventory that's sitting there quiet otherwise?
Well, that's an interesting question, Gary. I think there's two things. First of all, in order to do work, because not only you're right about what you said, and I'm not going to get into societal or political matters, but we also live in a litigious society. So in theory, you'd have to have some sort of, if somebody goes on that job site and they don't have health insurance and they fall and they break their leg or they do anything at all of a sudden there's a problem, right? Who's responsible?
It absolutely has to be done in a way that is legal and those people are taken care of and not abused.
Yeah, I would say that certainly a trade program where they could be, come in and get some sort of certification where they can, because there's different certifications. There's people that are like master carpenters, master electricians, and then there's people that are handymen, licensed handymen and licensed contractors. And so if they could get that sort of certification, I think that would be a great opportunity. Certainly a good skill set, given now how expensive labor is right now to get and trying to find people. When I talk to contractors, they're out. They're like 2-3 months out and turning work that away. And so certainly I think that's not a good idea. I think it's a good idea.
Well, I'll leave you with setting up the program for helping those people get educated, insured, and all that stuff. I think it's a big challenge, and I think that part of the answer, and I don't want to overplay this because it's not my place, but part of the answer could be letting those people work in a way that's appropriate, structured, they're safe. I'm not talking about let's do something that goes back to the 30s or whatever, and people work whatever, and if they lose a limb, that's okay.
And you know what? I will tell you this now that I'd worked with a number of people like that. I have a handyman right now that he's been renting for forever, and he's working with another partner who's a finance partner, and they flip properties, and I'm working with them as a team to help them build up their business enough to the point and document his income to the point that I can help him get a property. So the finance partner will actually kind of take title of the property, buy it in full themselves, and then sell it to them. As well once it's fixed up. So it's going to be an interesting proposition. But I think it's a great idea, and I think
I think it's just a shame in general. This has nothing to do with the people coming to our shores or any of that stuff. I think it's a shame that we have a housing inventory that is not being used, that could be used. And a lot of times it's people, they're hesitant. They don't want to part with mom's house. They know that they need to. You can see they're upset that, the roof leaked, and, they did the best they could to patch it, but there's still damage inside. That's why I believe that if you have a house that is going vacant, okay, that the best thing to do is to sell it. If you've got a plan that, cousin Bobby's moving in 3 months, yeah, okay, whatever. But if that place is, by all intents and purposes, is going to go vacant, sell it, because it'll end up in the long run being far less expensive for you. Because as you were starting to point out earlier, if you have it insured and there's no one living there, the insurance goes up.
Or doesn't pay.
What's that?
So if you don't meet those insurance requirements, remember, insurance companies do not want to pay out claims. If you in the fine print were required to either have alerts built into there through technology, or you were supposed to inspect that property, and they can document that you didn't have those things in place, and there's a claim, there's a fire, there's water damage or whatever, they won't pay out. So it is a risk that a lot of folks, I think, are taking, and they don't even understand they're taking it, and that's the danger in it.
So Brad, we are completely out of time for this show. Who are you? How to reach you quickly?
Best way to reach me, I'm Brad Avergon with Fairway Independent Mortgage. Best way to reach me is my cell phone, which is 978-375-5531, or brad@bradavergon.com is my email. And Gary, how about you?
Gary Kelly, 508-733-6005, or Gary@movewithgary.com. Brad, thank you. Had a great show and look forward to seeing you again.
Likewise, Gary. Take care. Be well, everyone.
Once again, thank you for watching All Things Real Estate. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Brad or Gary.